For everybody who saw my video the other day about why living down here in Florida basically sucks now, today is the perfect example of the days where it actually doesn't suck, but they're few and far between. It's like 74 degrees here today, and where I grew up in Belvedere, Illinois is only 22. So that's when it's nice to be down here. But you got to put up with 90% of the bad days in order to get 10% of the good ones. And you know who else is putting up with bad days right now, and they're trying to do anything they can to get out of it? Mortgage companies. That's right. We've talked about how so many different mortgage companies are on the brink of bankruptcy right now because of how slow the housing market is and how low the amount of closed sales are. And top that off with the fact that more people than ever are purchasing homes with cash. It's a recipe for disaster if you're in the mortgage industry right now. However, places like Fairway Mortgage, they have a good old solution to this. It's called, let's just give people free money and that'll get them through the door. This is how we're going to get customers, by essentially buying them. Here's the latest of what Fairway Mortgage is offering. It says, tip of the week. Could your buyer use an extra $7,000 towards closing? Only one borrower has to be a first-time home buyer and there's no income limit. Here comes another down payment assistance grant program from Fairway. Fairway is giving a true grant of $7,000 for down payment and closing costs with no repayment of funds. At least one borrower on the loan must be a first-time home buyer who also must reside at the time of under contract in an eligible census tract. Reach out to your loan originator to find out if your buyer lives in one of the eligible areas now. This is definitely unique because it has nothing to do with the area the buyer is purchasing in. It has to do with the area the buyer is currently living in. One of the best things about this program is there's no income limit. Some of the other benefits include an appraisal credit up to $500, reimbursement for a 1-year home warranty, reduced mortgage insurance costs, and improved interest rate pricing for non-traditional credit loans. This is simply a conventional mortgage with an added benefit for those who qualify for the program. It can be used with a traditional fixed product such as a 30-year fix, or even used with a 3-2-1 or 2-1 and temporary buy downs. Wow, guys. Unbelievable how much effort they are putting into getting people to close deals right now.
Here we have a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, pretty huge actually, at 4,000 square feet with a pool that's under contract. Someone's buying it, and they listed it for sale back in June for $2.84 million, and now it's under contract, probably somewhere around 2.5, 2.6 if I have to guess. That's still a lot of money to be spending right now in this economy. Property tax bills currently $20,000 a year, but get ready for that to jump up to way over $40,000 or $50,000 a year once you own this home.
Now, the way I understand this is it sounds like that this $7,000 is coming directly from Fairway Mortgage as a way for people to close deals. However, because there's some criteria of where you need to live in a certain census tract, it makes me feel like there's probably some sort of underlying government assistance program with this that they didn't mention here in this program. But it sounds like the government is helping essentially subsidize this $7,000 grant in some form or another, depending on where you live. I can't confirm that with this, but that's what it sounds like. But either way, guys, either way, what are they doing? They're giving people free money to buy a house. Free money to buy a house, along with a mortgage rate buy down, along with an appraisal credit, along with reduced PMI, which is private mortgage insurance in case you put less than 20% down, a free home warranty. Look at all the goodies they're giving you. When you add all this up, especially with a mortgage rate buy down, you could easily be looking at least 15 grand in free money for a program like this. And some people might say, oh, what's the big deal, Michael? Isn't this great news for home buyers? At least people can catch a break since the prices are so high. Well, yeah, sure, that's one way to look at it, guys. But I look at it more as like, why do they have to give all these breaks? Maybe it's because the prices are too high? Anybody ever thought about that? And something I've said on my channel at least 100 times already that I will say again for anybody new here watching is that the purchase price of the home can never be changed. The interest rate can always be changed at some point later down the road. You can always refinance at some point, assuming you have the equity, but you're never going to be able to change that purchase price, guys. So right now, the idea with all of this is let's get you into the house today. Doesn't matter that home prices are at the highest level ever. Doesn't matter, because we're going to give you all these incentive programs to get into the house. So all that stuff is temporary, right? The 3-2-1 buy downs is temporary. The appraisal credit's temporary. You're only going to get that once. The home warranty is temporary. That usually only lasts for a year. Then you have to pay for it. However, the $7,000 is permanent. But do you think that's going to be enough to cover your butt in the future if you need to sell the home and prices are coming down? No, especially with what it costs to sell a house, all the fees that go along with selling a house, the taxes that you pay, the realtor fees that you pay, the closing costs. It's very expensive to sell a house. So people need to understand that this is all basically a trick. It's a trick to get you into buying a house now because the prices are high. It's like a magic trick. That's why I call it a trick, because one of the things that magicians do to make sure that you don't understand what's happening and how they basically pull a magic trick on you is they say, oh, you know, pick a card here or watch this. And then in the meantime, something else is happening in the background that you didn't see because you were focused on this thing over here. That's exactly what's going on with these programs. It's like, hey, don't worry, don't look at the price, don't look at your final closing statement, all the costs. Just look at your monthly payment. Just look at how low we're going to make your payment for the first 3 years. Just look at all the freebies we're giving you guys, $7,000. Isn't this fantastic? Just look at that. Don't look at anything else. And you know, the worst part is first-time home buyers are the ones who are falling for this more than anyone else, because first-time home buyers have been making up the lion's share of purchasers over the past year or so. And it's kind of scary because it puts first-time home buyers in this really precarious position where it's like, okay, I need a place to live. I'm weighing the options here of buying versus renting, and well, look at all these freebies that they're giving me to move into this house, all these incentives. It sounds fantastic until the day comes when you can no longer make the payment, or you decide you need to sell for whatever reason. Some kind of life change happened unexpectedly and you got to sell the house 2 years later. Now you're in big trouble because all those freebies that Fairway Mortgage gave you in the beginning is not going to be enough to compensate for all of the loss you're going to have to take on the back end of the sale. Even if you're able to break even and sell the house for exactly what you paid for it in a couple of years from now, you're still losing money because of all of the closing costs, all of the fees. Everything involved with selling a house is expensive. It's estimated it costs about 8% of the value of your house to sell a house, guys. Think about that. So think about whatever you want to sell the house for, subtract 8%. That's what you're going to end up with in the end, minus your mortgage. And the crazy thing is all these programs are coming out at a time when we're starting to see unemployment tick up and more layoffs happen. The most recent one, Barclays Bank, guys, they're looking at laying off about 2,000 people right now. And it's another bank that's having big financial problems as well, you know. The bank's profits have been steadily going down. The share price for this bank is down 27%. Basically been on steady decline. And this is kind of the common story that we're seeing with all kinds of companies right now, not just banks. But that's the scary part, right? They're giving people all these incentives and like shiny objects to jump into buying a house at a time when many people are continually losing their jobs. And this is a trend we're likely to see continue happen over the next couple of years as these interest rates stay higher for longer. People keep getting caught up on this narrative that the Fed's going to cut rates and that's going to fix everything. And that's just could not be further from the truth, guys. I don't know why most people don't understand that when the Fed starts cutting rates, that means emergency time is here because things were basically over-tightened and now we have to drop it before it's too late. But the problem is it's already too late and the damage has been done, and you start seeing more stories like this, more layoffs here and there. Oh, but don't worry, we got $7 grand free to get into the house. So hope you can ride out that foreclosure long enough so you can find a new place to live.
This house is about half the size and half the price as the previous house that we saw, but it's not under contract. In fact, they've been trying to sell it since February of this year, and conveniently, Redfin is hiding the listing price of what it used to be listed at. But luckily, I have MLS access for you guys, and we can see that they were asking almost $2 million for this house, and now Now it's down to $1.4 million. Talk about a $600,000 price cut, but man, am I jealous of that property tax bill. Only $6,200 a year. That's less than I pay, even though their house is supposedly worth $1.3 million. Good for you guys, but also good luck selling it.
And guys, I'm not trying to be mean with this stuff. I'm just trying to get people to face reality that, there's no such thing as a secure job anymore. Gone are the days where people will work, 30, 40, 50 years at the same place and retire with a pension in the end. Like, that dream died a long time ago. And people are constantly switching jobs, trying to better their careers and make more money, which is understandable. But just as disposable as that job is to you, you are just as disposable to the company most of the time. And in times like this, where the economy keeps continually is on shakier and shakier ground, your job is at a higher and higher risk. And if you think you're going to jump into the biggest expense of your life and have no consequences just because you got $7,000 for free from some mortgage company, you need to think again. Now that it's actually winter and it's not 74 degrees everywhere, it's actually 22 degrees in some places in the Midwest and in other places in the world, in the country, it's cold, right? Well, here's a problem with that, because it was recently found out that heating your home in the wintertime using natural gas is estimated to cost about 40% less than using electricity. And the reason why this is a problem is because there's a massive initiative right now from the current administration to push people towards having an all-electric appliance set up in their house. Like, they're trying to get people off of natural gas. And this is a problem for people, guys, because, it's all touted how electricity is the better play in the long run, and this is cheaper and all of this. Well, we have proof right here that it's not. Check this out. Households using electricity to heat homes are projected to pay about $1,063 on average between November and March during this winter. And households using natural gas are only expected to pay $601 to heat their similar size homes. And the biggest difference is apparently in the Midwest, where I grew up, where electric heating is expected to cost $1,213, which is more than double the cost of the $581 estimated if you have natural gas. And in all regions of the country, it's cheaper. In the Northeast, it's cheaper by $704. In the South, it's cheaper by $507, and in the West it's cheaper by $417. So no matter which way you slice it, no matter which area you're looking at, it's cheaper to heat your house with a gas furnace than it is an electric one. So what this administration is doing right now is they announced new energy efficiency standards for residential gas furnaces, pool pumps, battery chargers, dehumidifiers, ceiling fans, incandescent light bulbs, and gas stoves that would severely curtail the use of these things. And on top of that, they're giving rebates for electric appliances, even further trying to push people into using them just like the electric cars. And basically what this means is almost all of the appliances on the market right now would either need to be removed from the market or redesigned with this new initiative. It's going to make it so that everyday things that people want to buy are going to get more expensive or disappear altogether, and the products that will be available won't be any better. They're just going to be more expensive. You got to wonder why things are getting more expensive right now, guys. It's things like this that make life even more expensive on top of the inflation that we've been experiencing. Now look at this. Currently, about 46% of all the US homes use natural gas to heat their houses. So that's almost half. And for them to say they want to get rid of this right now and push people into using a different fuel source is kind of crazy, because it's like people are already strapped enough, and then you want to push it to the point where people are going to have to pay 40 to 50% more for their power bills in order to heat their homes in the winter time. Who benefits from that, guys? Who benefits? And just generally speaking, even when we take away the heating the house equation, it has been determined in a recent report from the Department of Energy that natural gas is a way cheaper energy source than electricity. So the cost of electricity is calculated to be about $46.19 per 1 million BTUs. And natural gas is only about $13.97 per million BTUs, which is 3.3 times cheaper than electricity. But yet everything is being pushed towards it needs to be electric now. So the savings really add up, because we talked about it being just 40% more expensive to heat your home in the winter, right? Well, what about all the other activities you have to do, like drying your clothes and cooking, different things that you use other appliances for? How about that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it turns out people that have gas appliances versus electric ones save about $1,068 per year on average compared to houses that use electricity. And through 2050, natural gas prices are projected to be half to a third of the price of other fuel. This is the clear winner right now in terms of where we should be using our household energy. And I'm not saying it has to be forever, guys. If you guys want to push for electric, that's great. But the only way that any of this is sustainable, like many people like to talk about with this, is if it's all 100% renewable, right? Well, we're definitely not there yet when it comes to electricity, and it's probably going to be a while before we are. So why prematurely transition people off of it and punish them? Why punish people financially for not having the right setup in their house? You know, you don't get to pick when you buy a house if it has gas or electric appliances. Like, sure, you could buy a different house that already has electric or whatever instead of converting your gas house into it. So just like this whole initiative to decarbonize buildings throughout the entire country, this is the same thing they're trying to do with houses now, and essentially you're the one who's going to be paying for it. This is just like all the problems they have in California, right? You have the coastal elites in California that make all these laws that affect everybody throughout the entire state, and you know, somebody who's a multimillionaire isn't going to feel the pinch of having their electric bill be, you know, $100 higher every single month versus somebody that needs that $100 to get by. You know what I'm saying? And now our federal government is taking that same approach, because do you think anybody in Congress or President Biden is going to have trouble paying their electric bill if it goes up by $100 a month because of stuff like this? Of course not. But people who are already struggling and who are already on a budget can't afford this kind of stuff. So just another example of how the world's being turned upside down and how people are being forced to switch directions with things, first with cars, now with appliances, who knows what's next, you know, against people's will, and are being forced to pay more for it. Because all this stuff still costs a lot more than the old ways of doing things, but you're expected to switch right now and absorb all the costs, and no big deal, just make more money. That's what they're going to tell you. You know, when I hear stories like this, it just makes me happy that I didn't visit San Francisco, not even one time, when I was in the Bay Area. And that was on purpose, because I just didn't want to deal with the blight and the smell and all of the ridiculous things that they have going on over there. I'd rather enjoy the beautiful bay and mountain views and be in a peaceful, quiet area like this. Well, check this out. There's a commercial building in San Francisco called the Box SF. This place is going to be repossessed and foreclosed because the current owner cannot refinance the building, which is part of this whole commercial real estate debacle that's happening, where banks don't want to refinance these commercial properties because they don't know how much they're worth, as well as the values of them have dropped substantially ever since the pandemic and all the lockdowns occurred. And so most of the owners of these buildings don't even have the proper amount of equity to refinance, and even when they do, the sheer cost of refinancing these buildings is prohibitive, to the point where a lot of times they're just defaulting on these loans and giving the building back to the bank. This building has been unable to refinance a $2.5 million mortgage that came due in February of 2023. Okay, and it's set to be auctioned off on January 24th of 2024 at a massive loss. And so the owner of the building says this is directly because of all the widespread drug use and violence and filthy streets in the neighborhood for his inability to get this loan. He said he got turned down by 30 different lenders to refinance this property, guys. Imagine if you applied for a mortgage on a house and you got turned down 30 different times. I'd be willing to bet most people wouldn't even try 30 different times. And I bet you wouldn't even have to try 30 different times. You would get a lender like Fairway, and they even give you $7,000 for free to jump into a house in the ghetto, probably. And listen to what these lenders said. They said that we're not making commercial real estate loans in San Francisco due to the state of the city. And right next door to this building is a drug sobering center that opened up last year, where people will smoke fentanyl on the building's loading dock. Last year, people tried to break into the building, and someone even attacked the guy with a knife. Like, the neighborhood is trash, essentially. And it's also funny too, because I saw some videos on YouTube of how much they cleaned up the city of San Francisco in certain areas when they had this Apex summit a couple of weeks back. They literally took streets that were, full of homeless and tents and trash, and took all those people out of there, cleaned everything up, painted it, and put up fences so they could not return during this whole time. So it's pretty funny how a place like San Francisco can magically clean up their act overnight, essentially, when they need to look good for other countries, but they can't do it for the sake of their own citizens and all their taxpayers and people that actually work to pay for that city to stay afloat. And I think the important lesson to be learned from San Francisco is, like, for all the other cities that want to try following some of the ridiculous ideas that have landed them where they're at right now, that's a preview of what's going to happen to your city if you do it, to the point where banks don't even want to refinance mortgages on buildings in these areas because the area is so horrible. So just think twice, guys, whenever you look at some of these ideas and you think, oh, that was a good idea. Well, maybe it really wasn't, because look how well that worked out for these people in the long term. And one other thing I wanted to share with you guys was this story that was sent to me by one of my viewers, Monty, talking about how in Ontario, Canada, there is a small town called Cochrane. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they're going to be selling plots of land in this Canadian town for only $10 to people that qualify for this, because it's been determined that building a house or buying real estate in general, the biggest cost of doing so is the land. And so if we can give people essentially a free plot of land, this eliminates the biggest expense when it comes to building a house, and then hopefully these people can afford to build their own house. Now, obviously, Canada is in a situation times 10 what the US is in terms of affordability and inventory shortages, and so that's why they're going to these desperate lengths to do this. But I just thought this was super interesting that you literally have towns and cities now looking at giving away land for free, essentially, for people to build houses on, because the housing situation has gotten so out of whack and so unaffordable. Could this be a preview of where we're headed here in the US? Maybe, I don't know. But when you hear things like this, it's certainly not looking good. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.